Matthew chapter 5, verses 13 through 16. You are the salt for the earth, but if salt loses its taste, what can make it salty again? It is good for nothing and can only be thrown out to be trampled under people's feet. You are light for the world. A city built on a hilltop cannot be hidden. No one lights a lamp to put it under a tub. They put it on the lampstand where it shines for everyone in the house. In the same way, your light must shine in people's sight, so that seeing your good works, they may give praise to your Father in heaven. Grace and peace, dear brothers and sisters. What a beautiful play. I don't know how many of these Christmas plays I've attended. Now, I haven't been able to attend for many years, but I think I've attended at least 15 or so. But every time it's such a beautiful experience to certainly hear the story, but also especially to see our young people, so actively celebrating Christmas and bringing us into the spirit of Christmas. And I was reminded that the theme is this Matthew 5:16, which is that we are the light of the world. And we had that beautiful story with Nova, the star who couldn't find his way or wasn't sure what his purpose was, and suddenly he was brought to the realization that he was bringing people to Christ. And so, in the community of grace, we certainly emphasize a lot on the Word of God. In Psalm 119, verse 105, we hear that the Word is a lamp to our feet. I think perhaps taking a step back from letting our light shine, from being a light to the world, would be to ensure that we have the light, okay? Because you can't give what you don't have. And so Christmas, and that's why we have Advent. Advent is, in a way, preparing ourselves to receive Jesus, who is the light of the world, into each of our hearts. To make room for him, to keep a space for him. And once we have that light in us, then we can let it shine. Now, many of us here have been, with the community, but then I'm sure all of us have been hearing the Word of God and receiving Jesus in various ways in the church and the sacraments. And so we all have, to some extent, that light in us. But we have to let that light grow. St. Paul says to Timothy that fan into a flame the light that's in you. And then, once you realize that you have that light, and as it's growing, then you have a duty, a call to let the light shine. So that's not an option. It's not like a nice addition to being a Christian, but it is required. And in the reading we have, and the theme for this program, that no one puts a lamp to put it under a tub. No one lights a lamp to put it under a tub. They put it on a lampstand. And so if we're not letting our light shine, if we're not allowing people to see Jesus in us, then we're not doing our job. We're not doing what our vocation is as a Christian. Now the question is, how do you let your light shine? What's the method? And it's easy to think of letting your light shine as doing something like what I'm doing here, as giving a talk or some sort of spiritual reflection. But St. Francis of Assisi has a beautiful line that goes, "Pray at all times, pray and preach the gospel at all times, and if necessary, use words." So that means that there's many ways of letting your light shine without even saying anything. Living the gospel, living a virtuous life, having an integral life with the Word of God, allowing the Word of God to inspire us and guide us in every decision we make, be it in the family, in school, in the workplace, at office, or wherever it is, allowing the Word of God to be the inspiration behind everything we do, keeping God at the very center of our life, imbuing or kind of weaving up day constantly with communication with the light, with who is Jesus. That is a way of letting our light shine. And sometimes it shines even without us knowing. And so, although we say that it's our duty to let the light shine, it's not an option. As long as we are trying to live holy lives, we're letting our lights shine. So the focus is always Jesus. Am I in touch with Jesus? Am I in, relationship with him? Do I love him? In the midst of the messiness of my life, like how Joseph and Mary's life was, very messy. You think about how great their call was. I mean, Mary was called to be the mother of God. Joseph was the foster father of God. They were so holy and, so special. But they had much messier lives than probably any of us. I mean, can you even imagine that, having to deliver a baby in a stable? I mean, I can't even imagine that. And the thoughts that would go through their mind at that time, like, maybe, is this the right thing? Like, did I do something wrong? Or, what does God expect me to do in this, pathetic situation where, I have this lady my wife who conceived before we even came together, and now she's about to deliver, and we don't have a place to stay, and it's very messy. It's a messy situation, but even in the midst of that, they move forward, not just in complacency or just kind of accepting, but really recognizing God's guiding hand and all that. And so we shouldn't be discouraged by messiness in our own lives when things don't go according to our plan, which often they don't, but rather focus on letting the light shine, living a holy life, keeping Jesus at the center, being faithful to our prayers. And so never be discouraged, when things don't go your way. Just keep letting your light shine. That's what we're called to do. And you will find that when you do that, when you let the light shine, when the focus of your lives move from the distractions which may be at the workplace, at school, or wherever it may be, and allow the light in your heart, that is Jesus, to continue to shine, that is when you will experience a true happiness and a true peace, a true joy. Because that is the very purpose for which God created us, to grow in relationship with him, to be with him, and to him to be in us, to be the light, and to spread his light, his love to everyone. And that's what brings this world to its purpose, to be with God. And so I'd encourage all of you, whether it's your first time here or your 20 And I think the first Christmas program we had is 2003 maybe, or 2002. So if this is the 23rd time or the first time you're coming for this program, perhaps the message to go home with is to let your light shine. Lord, how do I have that light in my heart? And am I letting it shine not just through my words, but through every act that I do, in every place that I am? Let's especially pray that the Lord may continue to grow in each one of us so that we may be like Nova, the light that shines and leads people not to ourselves and not necessarily to the community of grace even, but first and foremost, most of all, to Jesus, the Son of God.